Good morning to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us today. It is Monday, the 16th of May, 2022. My name is Miriam Gutu. The show is Good Morning Africa. Just a couple of minutes past 10 a.m. here. It's the African time. I trust that your weekend was well and your week has started off well as well. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in and watching us today. I'll take us through the headlines of the local newspapers here in Kenya and then some from Africa. So let's just start. My name is Miriam Goto, in case you don't know that. The Daily Nation, the main headline, Ruto's biggest gamble yet. That is what we have there. Celebration dance and Revulsion Creek peak. As astute mobilizer, boasting deep pockets, ruthless on the campaign trail, and died in the whole loyal out of office in Nairobi on mismanagement and graft accusations has taken his populism to Mombasa, where he is quickly gaining both acceptance and dark-eyed disapproval in equal measure. Now UDA and ODM politicians want him stopped. That story is on page 13. And focus on Lamu, that is ethnicity and coalition politics. The ugly twins in the Lamu gubernatorial race that pits Eric Mugo against Fahim Twaha Issa Timami and Umra Omar. That story is on page 23. Why transition to junior high could blot CBC. With no clarity on where additional classes will come from, teachers say they already filled what they had billed with extra students from Form 1 intake. No concise policy on how pupils select and are admitted to their preferred schools. This new curriculum creation is threatening to become the weakest link in the system. There's a special analysis on that on page 10. Raila under pressure from his Azimio stalwarts to announce his running mate at KICC today. Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua, and Peter Kenneth and Peter Munya among the favorites. That story is on page 7 of the Daily Nation. And Professor Kithure, the astute lawyer who gave up his governorship dream in the hope of being the DP, is now counting his losses. That is on page 5. And NHIF in eye of a storm over police cover. The National Health Insurance Fund is embroiled in yet another financial scandal after it emerged that it cannot account for 400 million Kenya shillings in excess of loss of insurance cover for police officers was used. Now MPs wants its leadership to answer the hard questions, and the story is on the back page on the Daily Nation. The Standard newspaper, the main headline, why Ruto went against MPs to pick Gachagua. Tharaka Nithi Senator Kithure Kindiki was most favourite for running mate with an internal UDA vote placing him way ahead. But after a night of intrigues, DP went for loyalty and numbers. That is on page 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 and 13 of the Standard, revealed how Uhuru Raila fixed Kalonzo. The deal signed by Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya parties on March 12th at the KICC grounds locked the partners in the coalition until 3 months after the elections. Signatories to the deal, including Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper, cannot leave the coalition 6 months to the poll or 3 months after without running afoul of the law. The story is on page 4. Malaria vaccine offers hope to families. That is on page 20. Safaricom eyes M-Pesa for children. You'll find that on the business page on page 26. Which way for Somalia after historic vote? And as we speak this morning, Somalia had its elections yesterday, and by elections, it's not like the people went to the polls to vote. The legislators are the ones who are tasked with that important role. And Somalia this morning has a new president, and I will not get too much into the details of that story because that will make for our topic at 11 a.m. So I'll just leave that right there. But that is a very interesting conversation that you do not want to miss. The Star newspaper, the main headline, 17-hour intrigues that gave Rigathi DP post, and Camps viciously fought for post as race narrowed down to Kindiki and Gachagua. The story is on page 4-5. Kalonzo threatens to bolt out of Azimio as Raila names his deputy. That is on page 2. Expressway will transform transport. That is an opinion piece. And 3 suspects arrested over student's murder. That is on page 3. Poor March May rains spell doom for food security. That is on page 9. Kisumu hotels fully booked as AfriCities Summit underway. That is on page 25, and that is what we have on the Kenyan newspapers. Let's just turn our attention to some other papers from across the continent and others from outside. And we start with the Daily Monitor from Uganda. And government to capture DNA on new national IDs. I don't know if I'm able to read the subtitles. They're a bit, I can't read that. It's a bit small. Bush war generals among 34 in exit lounge. That is what we also have on the Daily Monitor. And let me see what else. Could suspect in Kagezi killing be hiding in Europe? That you'll find also inside the Daily Monitor. And fake diapers on the market. Expert warns and media public barred from accessing Besigye home. Again, the long-suffering opposition leader in Uganda is there's still a problem there ongoing in Uganda. Okay. So the New Vision, 12,000 schools operate illegally. 12,000 schools operate illegally. That is according to a survey conducted by Education Ministry in Uganda. Okay, now that's worrying. And Bunyoro gets another sugar factory that we have there, and 34 generals to retire from army, and district staff flee on seeing State House team. Okay, and then we go to The Guardian. That is from the UK. Police chiefs accuse Home Secretary of power grab, and PM to back bill to scrap Irish Sea trade checks. And the HRT isn't cheating. Jenny Eclair on the menopause. It's another story, another scandal that has been making a lot of headlines in the UK. We have to fight John Legend on Trump, Kanye, and Joe. Okay, those are entertainment. Let's not get to that. And the Daily Telegraph, still from the UK, Prime Minister attacks Brussels over cost of living crisis. And then Sweden's bid to join NATO shows aggression doesn't pay. All right. And then the Punch from Nigeria. Our children won't attend school again, says Deborah. Parents, CAN to petition UN, US. And I think yesterday I was just reading a report where over 12 million children are out of school or something like that in Nigeria. So it's very worrying. And a lot of it has to do with the current ongoing insecurities and other factors that perhaps the government is not keen in addressing. There, 9 banks, non-performing loans rise, hit 814 billion Nigerian naira. It's there. And Nigeria spends 86% of revenue on debt servicing. South Africa, 20%. Nigeria spends 86% of revenue on debt servicing, and South Africa only spends 20% of its revenue. Okay. Negotiations deadlocked. Federal government seeks foreign assistance, and no agreement with federal government. Strike no ending soon. That is according to ASUU, and I think the university bodies in Nigeria. Okay. All right. National Assembly transmits amended Electoral Act to Buhari. They're also trying to amend the electoral bill. Same thing we are doing here. I don't know what they'll be amending there. I think I'll look at the details of that in the afternoon show. And so let's just leave that there for right now. The Nation, still from Nigeria, Atiku, Wike, Saraki, others battle for 3,700 delegates. So that is what we have. What Kanu told me about Southeast killings by Solobu. You'll find that on page 5. Nobody has contacted us, says slain Deborah's dad. And there you go. But Buhari, Malami ask Supreme Court to avoid Electoral Act Section 84, subsection 12 of the Nigerian Constitution. And The Guardian, still from, is it Nigeria or... I think the royal tour pushes for investment policy changes, and that's what we have there. And then we move on to The Citizen in Tanzania. How minimum wage salary slip will be from July. Civil servants receiving the minimum wage will see their take-home pay increased by between 42,000 Tanzanian shillings to 45,000 Tanzanian shillings from July after the government raised salaries for the first time in 7 years. Okay, that's some good news there, I suppose. And UK companies eye Tanzania for investment. And experts raise their alarm on hazardous pesticides. That's what we have there. The Herald, this is from Zimbabwe. Huge steps towards universal healthcare as locals hails new clinic. All right. And then the Daily News is still from Zimbabwe. Broad talks even more urgent now. Monzora says warns of tougher times ahead of Zimbabwe, and then government allows easier basics importation. And all right, okay. And the new Newsday, still from Zimbabwe, panic as basics run out. Okay, so ZRP ranked most corrupt government department. Okay, all right. So that is what we have in Kenya, and some few papers from Africa and others from outside, from the UK particularly. So you are now up to date. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Miriam Ogutu, for those who just joined us. So we'll just get back to some of the headlines that are in the Kenyan newspapers, because I want us to look at, I think, the story I saw here before we get into the politics of it. Okay, I don't know if I've missed it, but there's a story here that is not really political, because we've had that, so much of that, and we cannot escape politics right now, because we know we are in the political season in this country. So when you open the TV, the news is politics. When you everything, newspapers, just politics, and that is because of where we are today as a country and the preparation for the elections in August. All right, so let me just look at this story. Of course, yesterday, and we talked about it on the show, Deputy President William Ruto chose to settle for Rigathi Gachagua as his deputy president. He is the current member of parliament, and he is considered to be very loyal. So I think that is just some of the things the DP was looking for. And this was against perhaps some of, a lot of members of parliament had offered their support and voted and preferred to have had Kithure Kindiki as the deputy president for the Kenya Kwanza coalition. But DP Ruto settled for Rigathi. There are a lot of stories, from that meeting, the 17-hour meeting that took place in the DP's, residential area in Karen. And there was a lot of push and pull. So it's not like it was an easy pick for him. There was some revolt within, and these two candidates were able to mobilize their supporters. But at the end of the day, a lot of people, from the information we were getting from that meeting in Karen, had settled for Kithure Kindiki. And when you read through the reasons as to why they felt Kithure Kindiki would make a better pick for DP Ruto, was because of perhaps his demeanor, his, way of politics and other factors, And when you look at Rigathi, maybe a lot of people would not have thought Rigathi would be a good choice, because he seems to have the same combative nature as far as his politics is concerned. The same thing we see with the DP Ruto. So a lot of Kenyans thought, if you put these two people together, and this will be fireworks, and it will be interesting to see how they will work together, and should they be elected as the next government. Is Rigathi going to really listen to his boss, or is it going to be the same way Ruto is to President Uhuru Kenyatta right now, or even worse? So that has been a lot of conversations and questions Kenyans have been, asking. But nevertheless, there's a section of Kenyans that were happy with the DP's pick, and especially from Mount Kenya, and they said this is the person that will represent the interest of Mount Kenya, that will fight for the interest of Mount Kenya, and they know as long as he is there, then Mount Kenya is taken care of. So a lot of Kenyans were divided divided over this issue. So let's just get to see how the newspapers captured this story. This morning, we go to page 2 on the Daily Nation. I'll not read a whole of it because this story has been, captured in just several news, pages in the Daily Nation and the other, papers. So I'll not read too much into it, even as we work to have a panelist join this morning. We're having a bit of a technical hitch, but as once that has been sorted out, they will be with us in just a short while. Now, the fear that Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya coalition party presidential hopeful Raila Odinga will use the choice of Deputy President William Ruto's running mate to lock out his main challenger out of the vote-rich Mount Kenya region has emerged as one of the top reasons why Mathira Member of Parliament Rigathi Gachagua was settled on. Long after it appeared the team had settled on soft-spoken Professor Kithure Kindiki, despite the DP early last week claiming that his deputy's choice was the easiest when the rubber met the road. He had to assemble his strategists and allies, mainly from President Kenyatta's restive central region, at 6 p.m. on Thursday in anticipation of making the announcement on Friday. Even then, with a full day of talks, concessions and give and take, it turned out to be the Herculean task. At 12:45 a.m., the DP's campaign announced it had finally reached a decision, which was announced yesterday at 1 p.m. There was 6 contenders for the running mate post. We did have Professor Kindiki of Tharaka Nithi, Mr. Gachagua, Mathira, Ndindi Nyoro, Kiharu, Kiharu Member of Parliament, Alice Wahome of Kandara, Anne Waiguru of Kirinyaga, and Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi. So I will not get too much into this. I'm sure if you've been following this story and you've been watching this, this is something that the story you're quite familiar with. So I will not bore you with too much of those details. But, I want to, there's a story about Kindiki. And yesterday he did not show up. For that announcement. Kindiki was not present, yes, on page 5. So let's just look at why perhaps Kindiki did not show up for that announcement that the DP made on who he settled on as his deputy president. Yes, it is on page 5 on the Daily Nation. As the Grand Coalition government settled down to begin working after the 2007-2008 post-election violence, new opportunities were opening up in public service, some on consultancy basis to implement the national accord that ended the bloodshed. The son of a church minister, Professor Kithure Kindiki, he was about 36 years old, landed one of the new positions, and then it continued. I will not, let me just skip a bit of that background. So yesterday, having lost his bid to become Deputy President William Ruto's running mate, he promised to make a statement even as he thanked UDA and Kenya Kwanza Alliance members for the far, and he said he had come. I am eternally grateful to all those who supported and vouched for me to be named the UD and Kenya Kwanza Alliance Deputy President candidate for the August 9, 2022 elections. Following the decision taken by my party and the coalition, I will make my official statement today. So we are waiting for, Kithure Kindiki to make his statements. So yesterday, even as the DP made that announcement, and media was present in Kindiki's backyard, and the people from Meru are not happy at all, and they're saying they're waiting to see the person that Azimio will choose, and maybe that might, help them decide, if at all, where they will cast their vote as far as the presidential vote is concerned. But of concern that you could see from the people of Meru, they were not happy because Kithure Kindiki forfeited. He wanted to run as, governor for Meru, and he was told to leave that position to, Muthomi, so because he was expected to be one of the key people, maybe that the DP would choose. So because he was encouraged to forfeit that, and people thought, okay, so maybe that is the person that, that Ruto will settle for. So as it was, I think according to the political arithmetic, that might not have worked very well for the Kenya Kwanza coalition. So it's interesting. So let's just wait and hear what he has to say as far as that is concerned. We're waiting for that announcement, even as we wait for Raila to make announcement about his running mate. And we know, Wiper also has an announcement to make today. So there's a story here on the Standard newspaper of how Uhuru and Raila fixed Kalonzo. That is on page 4. So let me just bring us up to date. We'll just look them all together because they just tie in under the same topic, and it's a lot of intrigues this morning. So Wiper heads to court seeking nullification of Azimio Pact. That story is on page 4. Wiper Party leads to court today seeking to nullify the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Alliance agreement, according to Makueni Member of Parliament Dan Maanzo. Wiper National Executive Committee met on Saturday evening and unanimously agreed that party leader Kalonzo Musyoka leaves the coalition. Now, the agreement of Azimio One Kenya Alliance was legal issues that were approaching the High Court tomorrow morning, that is today, so that the court can guide the political parties currently, and we will be able to prove to the courts that the current agreement is illegal and unconstitutional, said Maanzo. Now, the Wiper Deputy Secretary General said they are also seeking to have every party in Azimio coalition being allowed to go into alone. In a new twist, Maanzo revealed that Kalonzo's name had been forwarded to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission as a presidential candidate. And so we saw Kalonzo last week appear on that panel to be interviewed for this position, for the coalition deputy for the Azimio One Kenya Alliance team. But even as he was doing that, it was revealed that Wiper Party already was collecting signatures so that Kalonzo could run as a presidential candidate, a presidential candidate under Wiper. And so, of course, there are legal issues that now Wiper has to deal with. One, it has already entered into a coalition, Azimio One Kenya Alliance. It is a member. And according to the laws and the things that they agreed on, is that if you want to leave, you have to give a certain amount of period, notice that you want to exit, the coalition, and at least 3 months before the elections, you can't. So that means that Wiper has up until after the election if they want to leave the coalition. And we shall look at that agreement just here. But now, I think Kenyans are wondering, and maybe this might not play very well for Kalonzo as he continues with these acrobatics, he's just all over the place. And because of that, Kalonzo seems to be slowly losing his credibility. He had already gained a lot of respect from Kenyans, judging from his many years of as a public servant, and we've seen him hold positions before, and he's known to be very diplomatic, and he's represented Kenya. Even right now, he's the Kenyan representative to, South Sudan, mediation team there. So he has had and has made a name for himself. But if he's not very careful, the same name that he's made for himself now, he's also made another name for himself that might not be very good for him as far as a leader in this country is concerned. And that is somebody who is not stable in his decisions. If you decide, I don't want to work with that side, of course, politics, you can never say never, because he came out and told us, I will never work for Raila. Ever again, unless I'm a crazy person, And then after, I think, President Uhuru Kenyatta's intervention, a couple of months, he was convinced, and he ate those words back, and he came out and said he's supporting Raila. Okay, be it, whatever, that happened. And then days later, during this panel interviews, Kalonzo came out and said, you know what, I'm not appearing on that panel. I will not be interviewed because I'm above such processes and all that. And I think a lot of Kenyans understood where Kalonzo was coming from and said, if Raila wants to choose Kalonzo, he could, because he has had him as a running mate before. So why would he have Kalonzo going through Coalition have Kalonzo go through the interview because they already know who Kalonzo is as far as his capabilities to holding that position is concerned. So Kenyans were divided on that. Okay, so be it as it is, he, after coming out in public and saying he's not appearing on that panel several times, and I don't know why he does that, then we were shocked to learn that he was going to appear, and he indeed appeared. And when he appeared in front of that panel to be interviewed for this position, he said, I did not want to give people excuses, reasons as to why I cannot be considered to this position. And also Kalonzo and Wiper Party before has said that there was a secret agreement, which I don't know, I mean, if has not learned anything about the secret agreements. Remember that agreement, the secret agreement that he was using as a talking point last year, that he had with NASA, you know, that was never made public. He should learn that in politics, sometimes maybe you need to make a lot of these things, you know, open and public. If you're entering into an agreement, you know, especially with a partner that you've had trust issues before with, then you need to make everything you do public. So after the agreement, he said he's joining, and remember him saying, I'm supporting him, Roho Safi, and whatnot. And then days later, he comes out and said, no, me joining Azimio, there was an agreement, that a secret agreement, that I will be given this position automatically. So he did not understand why Karua's name was coming up, you know, Peter Kenneth's name was coming up, and other names, other possible candidates that could be considered for this position. So he refused to appear on that panel, but he showed up anyway. And so when he showed up, he did not show up. He was not the only candidate that was being interviewed for this position. There were other candidates who also showed up for the same exercise. So when you show up to be interviewed for a position that several other candidates are also being interviewed for, so there's a possibility you may not get that position, that maybe among you there could be somebody, you know, else that could be settled on. So even as he showed up for this interview, he came there, I think, already with the entitlement that you've seen him have over, you know, this period. And so I don't know, for him it was just a formality. I don't know how serious he was about this interview, or for him, you know. But even as he showed up, he was still collecting Wiper Party, or rather, I don't know if it's One Kenya Alliance or Wiper Party. His team was still collecting signatures. So just in case he's not picked for this slot, then they will present the required signatures to the IEBC, and then he will submit his name as a candidate for the presidential elections. So I don't know if it is dishonest on Kalonzo's part, or I don't know if Kalonzo is just trying to self-preserve, because truth be told, Kalonzo is not running because he thinks, if at all he chooses to go ahead and fully complete this process and submit his name and be named as one of the presidential candidates, which he has a right as a citizen of this country. We can't really crucify him for that. It is his constitutional right. He can do that. But he knows fully well that he cannot be elected. So why is he running? And, you know, critics have said that perhaps he knows he can't win the votes. I mean, even in Ukambani, he can't get all the votes, and across Kenya, he's not been campaigning as a presidential candidate. So perhaps his main agenda is to disrupt the votes that perhaps especially Raila could have gotten if Kalonzo was part of that coalition from Ukambani, the votes that he could have brought to the table. So that is what he wants to disrupt, those votes. So that is the main reason why Kalonzo is running, not because he believes he has policies or agendas that is best and that could serve Kenyans best, you know, or he's offering himself as the best alternative of what we already have. But his main reason why he's running, if he decides, is he wants to make sure Raila does not get those votes in Ukambani, so, and perhaps create a crisis that might lead to a runoff, and then maybe he will have a better bargaining, a better bargaining power. So I don't know if that is strategic or that is selfish. I think it depends on where you're sitting and how you're looking at it. But if at all Azimio and Kalonzo had a private deal that he will be given this direct ticket, and then Raila and this other side of the team went against that, then I would understand why Kalonzo will decide to just go all out and disrupt the votes from Ukambani, because he's really right now acting like a jilted lover. And you can see that, that is coming from a place, somebody who perhaps feels he has been betrayed, but also he's coming out as a very entitled person. And maybe he has good reasons for that, or you can judge that for yourselves. So the deal signed by Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya parties on March 12th at the KICC grounds locked the partners in the coalition until 3 months after the elections. They signed that deal. So the only time Kalonzo can leave the Azimio One Kenya coalition is after elections. But the signatories to the deal, including Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper, cannot leave the coalition 6 months to the election or 3 months after, and without running afoul of the law. The deed of agreement signed on March 12th and obtained by the Standard says parties may give a 90-day notice to withdraw from the coalition, which now takes them beyond the election date because of the timeline that we have. However, Dr. Alfred Mutua's Maendeleo Chapchap and Amason Kingi's Pamoja African Alliance have thrown caution to the wind and left the coalition without following the laid down protocol. They have signed fresh deals with the Deputy President and William Ruto led Kenya Kwanza coalition. Now we know Dr. Alfred Mutua and Amason Kingi last week also left Azimio One Kenya Alliance and went to Kenya Kwanza. But these two are governors and they're serving their second and last term. So they really have nothing to lose. It's not like they're running for an election and they will be bad and it will affect them and affect. No, these two have nothing to lose. And, they're not such a gamble anyway. And their loss, them leaving Azimio, I don't think dented any chances as far as even the votes are concerned. The big deal there is Kalonzo. And these two are not running for office. They're not running again. They're just being, strategic, and hopefully if Kenya Kwanza wins, they can be given positions. And we saw the conditions that they were given in that, last week. I don't know if they'll be able to, to deliver the votes that are required, or they're part of their bargain for them to get whatever it is they will benefit from in Kenya Kwanza, should Kenya Kwanza, win. But as far as Kalonzo is concerned, it is a problem because Wiper is in Azimio la Umoja. Those two could have disregarded the coalition agreement deed, but those two are not running. They're not planning to run as presidential candidates. They're not planning to run as in any office. They're serving the last term as governors. So perhaps the situations are different. And Mr. Musyoka was among the first to blow the whistle, saying most parties, including his own, did not know what they signed up to. He also spoke of some deep understanding between him, ODM leader Raila Odinga, and President Uhuru Kenyatta. So I think there appears to be, there was a gentleman's agreement. There was a gentleman's agreement. I think they shook their hands on it. I think him to be picked as the deputy president, and so I think that's the kind of understanding, deep understanding, that Kalonzo has been trying to explain to us. But that was not put on paper, and that was not shared in public. Has he not learned anything in politics? You have to make everything public. This gentleman agreement a lot of times don't really turn out and work out for your own interest. And this agreement is legally binding and enforceable under the laws of the Republic of Kenya. The parties to this agreement shall mutually and in utmost good faith uphold and defend this agreement. Article 24 of the deed reads, more than 20 political parties signed up the deed on March 12th. A few others signed up much later on April 1st and April 8th. 10 of them countersigned every single page of the substantive part of the 16-page deed. The deal committed the parties to strenuous and punishing dispute resolution mechanism where breaches are sanctioned by a panel, including expansion of members. Aggrieved parties have to complain through the top party organ, the Coalition Council, which sits at once in every 3 months. So in the deed, President Kenyatta and Mr. Odinga were granted a prime opportunity to constitute the initial council, the party's top decision-making organ. Article 23 of the transitional provisions of the deal said the party leaders of Jubilee and ODM would agree on the first chairperson, party leader, deputy party leader, and members of the coalition. So in a nutshell, according to this deed that they signed, the coalition agreement deed, Kalonzo really can't leave. Kalonzo can't leave, and for him to withdraw, Wiper Party from this coalition, it's going to be another legal battle. I don't know. Maybe there is a place there that they could, they could find their way and maneuver through and get Wiper out of it. But according to this agreement they had, it's impossible for them to just walk out. Okay, it's impossible for Kalonzo to just walk out and get Wiper out of, Azimio and then go and become, so unless he decides to run with another party, so let's wait and see. Kalonzo will be making an announcement today. I think that is, we heard at the same time, I think 11, in just a few minutes' time, and then also ODM leader and Azimio One Kenya Alliance coalition, presidential candidate Raila Odinga also is expected to make an announcement about his pick as the deputy president. There has been a lot of rounds being made in social media about the possibility of him choosing Martha Karua. I don't know. Maybe that's why Kalonzo have been acting up. Maybe he knows something. I don't know. But just we wait and see how that will be. But today at KICC, and he'll be making that announcement today, even as Kalonzo makes his announcement. I think he picked the same time. He picked the same time, 11 a.m., to also make his announcement about his next move. So we wait and see how that will work out. All right. And so the deed does not indicate how power will be shared between the coalition parties. I think they should make that very clear. But anyway, all right, that is that. So we wait and see how that will work out. So there's something that happened on, over the weekend at the coast, that rally by Azimio, La Umoja, where Sonko showed up. I think he was not really invited. And then others were saying, but Wiper is part of the Azimio team. Mind you, Wiper leaders have not been part of the campaigns in Azimio. They've sort of given it a wide berth. And even KANU has not really been participating. Some members have not really been participating, in these rallies. And so Sonko decided to just invite himself to Raila's, rally in Mombasa over the weekend, and that did not turn out very well. So let's just read through this story on page 13 of the Daily Nation. Mombasa politicians continue to gang up against former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko in his bid to succeed Governor Hassan Joho, warning voters not to be swayed by his theatrics. The leaders drawn from ODM and UDA, led by Senator Mohamed Faki and Nyali MP Mohamed Ali, warned residents against electing Mr. Sonko in the August 9th elections, saying he will not develop the port city. Mr. Ali, who is defending his Nyali seat on a UDA ticket, said Mr. Sonko is a political reject. How can we stoop so low to allow a reject to come and vie in Mombasa? The entry of Mr. Sonko into the gubernatorial race is despising to the people of Mombasa. It is heartbreaking to think somebody whose character is known by everyone, has cases in court, and was impeached sees Mombasa as the easiest place to contest. He said Mr. Ali and said Deputy President William Ruto's UDA wants to liberate Mombasa. And of course, Mr. Ali termed Kisauni Member of Parliament Ali Mbogo a coward for agreeing to be Sonko's running mate. So already Sonko is causing. I'm telling you, after he was removed, and others will argue whether his removal was, first of all, was lawful, or the issues that were raised, even, it's a lot of conversation and we will not go there. But since his absence as the leader in this county of Nairobi, there's not been so much drama. And it appears this drama now has been transferred to Mombasa. And of course, Sonko wants to run, and it is his constitutional right to run. We cannot condemn Sonko. He wants to run as the governor. But now, you know, a lot of issues here that Ali is raising. Sonko has several cases in court, the same as, I think, Rigathi, the DP's pick, you know, and that really made for a debate on social media, especially on Twitter. And Kenyans are saying, okay, now this is a person who's already having so much. And when you look at his history and his 30 years in the public service, there are a lot of, you know, dark spots in that history that does not bring him out in the best light. That is Mr. Rigathi. If you go through his history when he worked under Moi's era and you know, and others, and you come through and then you look at the recent, you know, challenges that he has in court over corruption. And yesterday I watched his interview on one of the local television stations, and he said, you know, like the current, you know, case he has in the court over corruption, he says that is just witch hunt. You know, it has been a year since he was, you know, taken to court, and nobody has had substantial evidence that could actually see the proceedings go through. And so that made me wonder, you know, this thing, the fight against corruption in the country, how serious are we with it? Because such cases are considered to be of urgence, you know, they're urgent, and they should be treated as so. They should be heard as so. So it has been a year since he was presented to the court. Of course, that case will not continue until September, you know, after the elections. So should Rigathi be elected as the deputy president, you know, if Ruto is you know, if Kenyans decide to elect Deputy President William Ruto and Rigathi as his deputy. So how do you think the case will continue in the courts? It will not continue. This is the deputy. He will be, if at all he's elected. You know, that we might have some problem there. So maybe that case will be put pending until 5 years. And so maybe these are things that should be dealt with before we allow people to run for office. They are taken through the process of the law. You check whether they, you know, they're free to run, and they're vetted. And the leadership and integrity article in our Constitution, Chapter 6, you know, that is something that should be implemented. That is how we should be vetting our leaders, you know, not have them go there and then you stop their cases to allow them to be elected, and then after that it becomes a whole circus. And so I think there's something wrong with how we go about even the fight against corruption, and we must change tact, and I think we must mean business, and we must separate these institutions. What is happening in Parliament should not affect how institutions like EAC, like the DCI, like the Office of the you know, Public Prosecutions, their work should continue. And if they have cases that they are pursuing and they're investigating, that should not be affected by whether a person is running for office or not. They should do their job. And the fact that these offices decided to stop some of these cases and allow Kenyans to just, you know, elect these leaders, I think that says a lot when it comes to the fight against corruption in this country. So anyway, Rigathi, as I was watching him on the show yesterday, he said that this is just witch hunt. It has been 1 year later. Who has evidence? Why have I not been prosecuted? Why am I not in jail? And I said, okay, now that is a challenge to the institutions that you know, have been handling this case. So I think we have to change how we handle matters corruption. So anyway, the leaders, some of the leaders at the coast are bringing up the same issues when it comes to leadership and integrity on the person of Mike Sonko, that saw him being removed as the governor of Nairobi. And then now he's saying, how could he even consider to go to the coast, you know, for him to be elected there? And apparently, you know, he has taken his populism politics over there. So slowly by slowly, he's beginning to speak to the masses, to the down and trodden. You know, he can be very generous and he's helping people, and he knows how to really touch the hearts of the down and lowly. So he knows how to do that. That is his kind of politics, you know, so that is how he speaks to the people, and that is the language he uses, money and things like that. And they are receiving it and they're listening to him. And since he's been there, apart from causing a bit of chaos, like we saw on Saturday, but he's also slowly beginning to gain ground in Mombasa, and that is worrying the other key contenders from ODM and from UDA and other parties, and now they don't want him to run there. You know, I think there's a case in court to bar him, and I think IEBC was bad not to clear Sonko. That was from the court last week. We were having that story. You know, IEBC was bad from clearing Sonko until this chapter 6 of leadership and integrity. You know, he's able to clear his name. But you can't bar Sonko over that chapter and over these issues he's having in court, but still allow others, like Rigathi, who has a case in court, cases in court, you know, to run. You can't, you clear him. You can't. So if you're applying the law, then it has to cut across. You know, Aisha Jumwa is having a murder case, okay, and others are facing other cases, but they have been allowed to run. Their cases have been halted until after elections. So if this law is to be applied, then it will be applied across. You know, so while the court said IEBC should not clear Mike Sonko because of these cases that he's having, and you know, his violation of Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity, then even Okoth Obado, I don't know if he is running. He should not be running. So this law has to cut across. It cannot choose and cherry pick just a few and decide because this person is like, so now, you know, this law has to cut across. And I think in our implementation of the law, that is where we fail. We do have good laws. We do have a good constitution, but how we implement these laws, how we implement this constitution is what brings us to a crisis. If Sonko is bad to run, then these other characters should be bad to run. If we were to look at the Chapter 6 of the Kenyan Constitution on leadership and integrity, a lot of these politicians, they fail to meet that requirement in the Constitution, but they're still cleared. The same IEBC clears them. The same institutions clears them. And then you want to tell us that Sonko cannot run because of the same reasons. I mean, the courts must decide, you know, because the same courts are the ones who even postponed some of these cases. Say for Aisha Jumwa, it is the court that said, you know what, we will not listen to this case until after the election. So the court has to be clear on how it is interpreting these laws. As we know, the job of the judiciary is to interpret the law, you know, the laws for us. The police, that is to implement. The courts is to interpret the law for us. So if we clear all these people with these tainted images, then we take them to Parliament, a lot of them, and then they will be responsible in making these laws. What kind of laws do you think they will make there? What kind of legislation do you think will be ongoing? Because we know the CS for Interior revealed the other time that over 40% of people who are vying and who could be possibly be elected in the next parliament are people who are involved in illicit businesses, money laundering and all that. So if the government already has this intelligence, but you cannot, shield Kenyans from electing these people, and by shielding them is by making these cases, one, public, and by initiating prosecution, because you already have the evidence. But no, you're letting Kenyans to go and elect these leaders, because a lot of Kenyans don't know. They just see a leader has so much money, and so that person is generous, will just eat his money and maybe vote for them. They don't know the source of that money, but the government does have the intelligence for that, but you not do anything about it, and the investigative bodies have taken a break from their job. So Kenyans are predisposed to electing bad leaders, and then these people, when they sit in that parliament, you expect them to create laws around corruption, around money laundering, around other issues that has plagued this country. What quality of laws is going to come from that parliament? Okay. And these are questions we have to ask ourselves, you know, and if at all we want to progress as a country, we must get serious when it comes to, you know, some of these things, because talk is cheap. We need the institutions that have been mandated with these very important responsibilities to do their job and to be independent, regardless of what is going on in the country. They should continue doing their job so that they weed out some of these, you know, characters that Kenyans are not left to electing people who should not even be, you know, sitting at a public office. Okay, so thank you so much. And as we wait for, you know, the announcements today by the Azimio One Kenya coalition team, as Raila Odinga will be naming his deputy, and also Kalonzo Musyoka said he has something to tell Kenyans. I don't know if this, there's also somebody else who's supposed to be, you know, having a press conference today, but I think we shall update you as soon as that is on. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Good Morning Africa. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good morning.